Hello, Gary here. Welcome to Let's Talk Comedy. In this video, I'm going to break down 6 experiences and comedy techniques you are going to need in your first ever open mic, your first ever stand-up comedy gig. So if you have not done that, this is the video for you. If you have done it and you're a little far along, this is also going to benefit you because it's going to describe in detail the basics you should be focusing on. Now, I always say when performing comedy, at least at the beginning of your career, the first few times you go on stage, it's not so important to focus on being as funny as you can be. There are more important things to focus on in your first few times on stage. I am going to list 3 things you should focus on stage, and then after that I'm going to give you 3 topics that you are going to discuss in your first ever comedy gig. And the reason I've chosen these 3 topics is because it's going to push you writing comedy just a little bit. They're also the kind of topics you see coming up time and time again, which means you have connection to the audience when you talk about these things because they are in common with everybody in the room. It gets you on board with the audience very early on, and because the topics are regular, there's lots of humor to be found within them. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to show you a real cool trick on how you can structure this set depending on what area is working best for you. So stick around. I hope you will get lots of value from the video, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. Here we go. Let's jump in to 3 experiences you should focus on when you first approach the stage. Here's number 1. The first one is ultra important, and that is stage awareness. Where are you standing on the stage? And are you moving around too much on the stage? The majority of the time we're performing at open mics at the beginning of your career, the stage is going to be either non-existent or very, very small. You're not going to be on a big stage. But small stages and non-existent stages, like no stages at all, they're all perfectly fine as long as you can stand comfortably in front of the room full of strangers. Nobody wants to see a comedian who cannot look at their audience. If you spend most of your set looking at the floor and turning from left to right, walking up and down, well, it doesn't matter how good your jokes are, it doesn't matter how well they're written, no one is going to be listening to you because it's too much work trying to pay attention to a person who's awkwardly pacing back and forward on a small stage. It's just not going to work for you. It's better to fake the confidence and fake how calm you are and just stand there and look at your audience in the eye. Now, there is a trick to looking at the audience in the eye. If you are a shy person and you find looking at the audience in the eye a little difficult and a little impossible at the beginning of your career, there is a trick on how to get around that. I would urge you to look just over the eye line of anybody in the room. What that means is instead of catching eye contact with a member of the audience, you are going to look about 4 or 5 inches over their eye line, so they think you're looking at somebody very close to them. And the person behind them or beside them also thinks you're looking at someone very close to them. And you can do this technique while scanning the entire room, never actually looking in anybody's direct eye line. And everybody in the room thinks they've all had a moment of eye contact with you. It's a nice little trick for those of you who find it hard to look someone directly in the eyes when there's so many people looking right back at you. And the great thing about this technique is while you do it, you just don't have time or the ability to pace back and forth on the stage if you're going to give this a go. So that is where you should be putting your focus. Making it look like you're having eye contact with the audience gives you something to do rather than think about how nervous you are and let the audience in on how nervous you are. Next thing you need to consider on stage is the microphone position. How far are you holding it from your face? There is no correct answer to this because every gig you go to, the sound is going to be different. So what you're going to do is start talking to the audience with the microphone close to your chest. And as you talk, you're going to bring the microphone closer to your mouth, to your face. And the only reason you're doing this is because you are testing the levels of the microphone. You're finding out that sweet spot to where everybody can hear you, but they don't hear you too loud. If you start with the microphone too close to your face and you start screaming into it because you're nervous, you're just going to deafen everybody in the room. It's not the best start for you. I think you could do better. Start with the microphone away from your face, bring it up closer to you, and once you kind of feel that the room can hear what you say and feel that the levels are right, well then you stop and you hold the microphone there. There's nothing worse than a comedian spending a lot of time writing the perfect set and practicing it, only to ruin it for themselves by holding the microphone either too far away from the face and nobody can hear what you're saying, or slobbering into the microphone, deafening everybody in the process, and everybody ends up hating you. Instead, give your audience another reason to hate you and hold the microphone in the correct way by just spending a few seconds at the beginning of your set to find the sweet spot. Lastly, before we get on to the material you are going to discuss on stage, this is the last thing you need to focus on. Are you offering your set to the audience, or are you being selfish with your performance? Now, this is something that you're going to work on through your entire time on stage. And if it turns into a career, you never stop working on this one aspect. You're always going to be trying to find ways of getting the audience involved in what you do. Now, there's many different ways of going about doing this, but I want you to have it in your mind very early on. It's not just about delivering a couple of jokes and hopefully getting a few laughs. It's about bringing them all in to what you're talking about, trying to win them over with who you are, regardless of how harsh or soft you're going to be on certain topics. They should like you, they should want to know you, they should want to talk to you after the gig. You cannot shut down boundaries with them, you cannot burn bridges with them. They're the ones paying for the ticket, you have to entertain them. And it sounds very obvious when said out loud, but you'd be surprised with the amount of starting out comedians I have seen that go on stage and they have an attitude about them that kind of says, I'm too good for this level. I'm too good for the open mic level. I shouldn't be here. And the audience turn against them. And it doesn't matter how great their jokes are. If the audience don't like you, well, they're not going to laugh and they're not going to remember you. You want them to like you, you want them to remember you, and you want them to get excited when they see your name on a bill later on. A few examples on how you can go about doing this is while you're discussing the topics you discuss on stage, are you spending enough time mentioning it to the audience? Are they on board with what you're saying? When you deliver a punchline, do you give them enough time to understand it's a joke and that you're telling a story, and are they enjoying it? Are you allowing them to laugh? Are you giving them enough pause moments? Are you comfortable with that? You need to be offering them the set as an idea. Look, I have something really funny here. Are you on board? You need to be constantly paying attention to the audience. You need to be focusing on doing your best to win over at least 75-80% of the people in the room at every single gig you do. And the sooner you get into doing this and looking at it, did you win over 80% of the audience? And that's what you judge your gig on, not if one joke worked out of all of the jokes you did, because that's not good enough. You want to be doing way better than that. And most of the people at the lower level are only looking at their set and they're looking at one joke here and they're describing, oh, out of 10, how good did that joke work? Well, that's not good enough. You need to be looking at your entire set and your presence on stage and the overall picture, the overall message you're putting out. So before I even get to the 3 topics you are going to talk about on stage, the first thing that has to happen is you walk up on stage. I want to mention real briefly what you should be focusing on here and what you should talk about when you arrive on stage. The first thing you're going to do is a brief introduction. It's just telling the audience what your name is, because the vast majority of the time the MC has ruined this for you, because that's what MCs do. So most of the time when you get up on stage at an open mic, it's up to you to introduce yourself. So after you introduce yourself, I want you to briefly tell a joke about the room you are in. It's some observational humor, something you have noticed that you have written down before you went on stage. It can be about anything as long as it's in the room you are in. What this is going to do is get everybody laughing at the same thing in the room, and you all have it in common. You're all in the room. So by you highlighting whatever the funny thing is, well, you're bringing everyone on board with something that they have in common with you. They will agree. They wish they got there first, and you'll be already ahead of them. You'll already have established yourself as someone witty and humorous and able to make fun of an immediate situation, even though you've had all the time in the world before you got on stage to find something that's funny enough. The more you do this, the funnier your writing is going to become, and the more you're going to be able to make fun of even the things you wouldn't have thought about in the first place. So each time you walk into an open mic gig, take a few moments to look around the room, and anything sticking out of the ordinary, anything that comes to mind, just really quickly jot it down, something funny that you can say about it when you first go on stage to break the ice at the very beginning of your set. Now, after that, let's talk about the 3 topics you were going to discuss after winning over the audience at the very beginning of your set. The first one is work, what you do for a living. You're going to go into talking about what it is you do for a living, if you have a job, if you do not have a job, if you're still in college, what you do in college, how you spend the majority of your week you're going to discuss here. It already opens up lots of avenues to talk about. If you're at college, what are you studying? Are you the kind of person that people expect to study that? If you're at work, the same thing goes. What do you work at? Are you the kind of person that people expect to be in that job, or do you stand out from your work colleagues? How do you get along with your work colleagues? Are you just like them? Are you completely different? All of these avenues are here to play with. Make fun of them. Make fun of yourself, because a person who can make fun of yourself, later on if you choose to, you can make fun of the audience if that's the way you go. Or make fun of characters that you talk about in your stories. Always make fun of yourself first. And through work is a perfect example of expressing yourself in a way, because one, it's nice to talk about your work because everybody in the room goes to work or even doesn't go to work. You have something to do at work in common. It's an easy way to go, and there's endless amounts of jokes and observations you can get out of simply talking about what it is you do for a living, or what it is you want to do for a living. What did you want to do when you were a kid? All of these things are related to the arena of talking about work. So it's an easy way to go in at the very beginning. Here's where you jot down 2 to 3 minutes of material about work. And whatever you find out of that that's good, we'll throw it into your set. If the entire thing you like, throw it all into your set. Topic number 2 is going to be relationships. Are you in a relationship? Are you not in a relationship? Did you just break up from a relationship? Did you just murder your ex? I don't care. Whatever it is, time to get honest. Put it in the paper right now. Jot it down, a few things about relationship. Now, if it's your first ever time writing and you're kind of screaming at the screen now going, well, it's all fair and good, but how do I actually write jokes to do with this? Just write down a few different ideas you have on this topic. Write down, when it comes to relationships, write down if you're in one, if you're not in one, and a few ideas on what you think about relationships. Do you want to be in one? Do you hate them? Are you happy to be single? All these things are unique to you and how you see relationships. And just by jotting them down, forget about the funny, forget about the jokes. By jotting them down and writing as much as you can on the topic without stopping yourself, without thinking, and then going back to it, and then trying to find, where can I add a few jokes here? How can I make fun of myself? Can I make fun of others? Can I make fun of the idea of being in a relationship? What do I think being in a relationship means to me today? What do I think it means to me versus the standard of relationships? Am I family values driven? Am I not? Am I in an open relationship and I've no real care for commitment at all? All of these things are personal to you. And after writing them all down, we'll then go back and you can make fun of them. And just by making fun of them in a lighthearted way is going to get you through the first few comedy sets. It doesn't need to be the funniest thing you've ever written. It's just about getting it on the paper, learning it, and getting it out on stage. And finally, topic number 3 you're going to finish with on your set is going to be your own personal quirks, hobbies, interests. Something that is only unique to you, something that makes you stand out, something that makes you a little bit weirder than the rest, something that you are interested in pursuing as a hobby, or something that is odd that you do. This is where your writing gets really unique, because I can't even tell you how to write it because I've got no idea how weird you are as a person. You're looking up a stand-up comedy tutorial video on YouTube. You're clearly not the normal person. So here's where you can get honest and make so much fun of your uniqueness. And there's one thing that you do in the world that is odd and that, you might not be ashamed of, but it's just different than the normal. Well, here's where you talk about it. Now, I'm not saying that you alienate everybody. I'm not saying that you overly shock them. This is just a light little expression and fun, more fun to make of yourself. It's not where you leave the audience for dead because you admit something that's just horrendous to them. That's not the idea here, although it's sometimes fun to do that. But really what I would like you to do is get to the end of a set and everyone still likes you. So here's where you just write down a few of the things, or even just one topic of interest, something that is completely unique to you on either how you see the world, something that you like to do, whatever it is. Here's where you talk about it and make fun of it. And I said I'm going to finish up this video with a really cool structuring idea, a cool technique about these topics I've given you. You can very easily change the order of the topics. So you can start the set after your observational humor joke about the room. You can start your set talking about your odd quirks, the way you finished in the first time. And you can talk about work second and relationships third and finish the set with doing that. And the more you mix up the order of the topics I've given you, the more you're going to uncover areas of funny in your set that otherwise you would never have found. So if a few jokes are working and they're working really well in work, for example, and you've got a really killer joke while talking about work, well, I would argue that you should put work at the end of the set and finish with the real strong laugh. And if relationships isn't doing so well, I would put that in the middle to have a little bit of a downtime. And if the talking about the quirks are working well and it's kind of got a couple of laughs in there, I would put that first. You want to start off with a couple of consistent jokes, and if the middle dips, but you need to work on it, you need to get it funny. But at the beginning, it's not that bad if an area of your set dips, because you're going to learn how to overcome that down the road. But if you have a joke that's working really, really well, and I can guarantee you, the more time you spend writing on these 3 very simple topics, the more you're going to have great material that works. The reason that so many people mess up is because they overthink how successful they're going to be. By paying attention to the basics at the very beginning, you're going to understand so much more than someone who goes in with just pure confidence and not much understanding of the art form. By just paying attention to the basics, you're going to uncover a lot of hilarious one-liners and hilarious stories, and you're going to absolutely blow them away. And I wish nothing more for you. I really hope you've gotten value from this video, as I do on every video, and I'm so grateful for you giving it the time and watching it, and I really, really hope it's going to benefit you. So go get writing, get booking, book 5 open mics and go give them all a go, and drop back in the comment section and let me know how you're getting on with them. I wish you the best, and I'll see you on the next video.